Want to find your seat for the event of your choice but can't get one that fits your desire or your budget? Well, my friends, SeatGeek has you covered. SeatGeek is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show. With a list of over hundreds of events to choose from, SeatGeek will assure you that you won't miss your seat with the amazing view of your choice at the most affordable price. Whether it's looking for your best seat in the house of your favorite sports team, finding live concerts that get you closer to your favorite artist, or enjoying your spot at your favorite live shows, comedies, and more, SeatGeek has it all just for you. Go online to SeatGeek.com or download the app on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. And as a special offer before checkout, use promo code SNAKESPORTS and save yourself $20 off of your purchase of your first ticket and experience why SeatGeek is the most trusted ticketing app for your next event. Remember, that's SeatGeek.com and download the app on your phone with promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off and find your seat with SeatGeek.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. I am excited for tonight's show here on a Monday. Absolutely stacked it last week, but this week is going to be a lot bigger and better than ever. So I'm excited about this here tonight. Wherever and however you may be watching and listening. Thanks for making us a part of your day. Chase Stepp is joining us. Chase, we're almost there, man.
We are almost there.
Week of preseason, and then it is game on, baby.
Oh, yeah, man. I cannot wait for this. It's going to be a phenomenal preseason, regular season, and just that first game of the season, I've got to wait until 4:25 for my team to start playing.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, I'll tell you what though, this is going to be a fun show tonight because all the way up from Australia, our good friend Mark Davison with Steelers Nation Australia is going to be joining us here because we got a lot to talk about with Russ, with Justin Fields, and the state of the Steelers. So
and that horrible O-line.
So just 5 minutes before Mark Davison comes up and joins us. So I think it was pretty clear, don't you, that I feel like Bo Nix is in fact the guy in Denver after what we just seen in 2 preseason games. I know many people kind of write off the fact that he may not be offensive rookie of the year. Never say never. I know Caleb Williams looks great, and Shane Waldron has put together this offense that I think is going to be explosive. But you can also never count out the fact of how Sean Payton and what he's done with this Denver Broncos group, and with adding in Bo Nix, the closest thing that he had to Drew Brees, everything is starting to come together. You've seen him make quality throws to Marvin Mims and Tim Patrick. He's not even running out of danger. That's not the case at all. He's running to create open space, kind of open more of the offense, get some more of the receivers involved. So the Broncos have a very interesting season, as I've touched upon now in the last few months, because they've got 13 straight weeks of football before their bye week in week 14. And then we got to see what they'll look like right after that entire 13 weeks of gridiron football. So, but Sean Payton, he's dealt with worse in New Orleans. Isn't it nice that, think about it, when a company goes through turmoil and they need something new, because the Broncos organization, they realized they made a humongous mistake trading for Russell Wilson, but then paying him very early to get on the field, and now they're paying the price. $68 million in the dead cap, but all of this is going to go away when Bo Nix is winning you games. And at the same time, the offensive fluidity looks fantastic. He's also making plays without even having to hesitate or make second guesses. Like, he just plays instinctively. This is what you get when you have a quarterback with X amount of starts in college. And not to mention, give credit to Dan Lanning and what he's put together in the Oregon offense. Because when Mario Cristobal was the head coach, he had Justin Herbert. But Herbert at times felt a little bit like there was some conservative play. But in the end, in the Rose Bowl game, they let him loose, and this is what you got out of Herbert. Dan Lanning comes in, you grab Bo Nix, SEC experienced quarterback. He then only had 3 interceptions since he's been in Oregon. So he's barely turned the ball over. And not to mention, he holds himself accountable when mistakes happen. So watching Bo Nix and watching him grow, I've been hearing all the rumor buzzes living here in Denver. It's the real thing. Mark Schlereth is bought into this. I think Sean Payton right now is bought into this. We know that we've got one more preseason game, but I think the writing is all over the wall. Denver is forgetting about the years with Russell Wilson, and they are focused on the now with the future with Bo Nix, and you know what? Good for them. They finally, after all these years, probably since John Elway, that they've organically found their quarterback through the draft, building him up, grooming him up, and teaching him the ropes of what it means to be an NFL franchise quarterback. They have not dealt with that in a long time. They brought in guys like Jay Cutler. They drafted him, shipped him off to Chicago. They ended up bringing in Teddy Bridgewater. They brought in Peyton Manning. They brought in Russell Wilson. All these veteran quarterbacks all throughout the years, and they've yet had nothing to build organically in the quarterback room. Every single one of them have been hit or miss. I get it. Some of them, they're trying to clear the skeletons out of the closet with the Paxton Lynch pick. But you ain't even got to worry about that anymore. You cannot be scared to fully draft and develop a quarterback. We know quarterbacks are hard to find these days. But I think they found the real thing. I think he works in this culture. And from what I've seen, from his attitude and what he looks like up onto the podium, somebody asked him what it would be like being the third quarterback on the depth chart. And he's like, I'm not worried about it. I'm here to compete. I'm here to play football. I'm here to be the best shape of my life. And that's what I care about. That tells you that much what a franchise quarterback looks like. And I think Bo Nix, get ready. Things are starting to mix up here in Denver. And I think he's more than prepared for this. So I got at least one good friend of mine that lives up in Australia, covers a lot of NBA. Great friend. I absolutely loved him. Having him on the previous network I was a part of. And so joining us all the way out, covering the Pittsburgh Steelers via the Global Satellite Network presented by StreamYard, here is Mark Davison, Steelers Nation. Well, Mark, this is an interesting year going in this year for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but this is what I've said kind of outlooking the year, is that when you're facing Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and that Browns defense twice a year, you cannot be mediocre at quarterback. And I felt like they did the right thing going and getting a veteran in Russell Wilson. Now, again, a lot of these buzzes all through camp and what we've seen up in preseason, it's a little bit interesting. How have you been able to digest with the offseason, training camp, and here in preseason before we get ready for the up-and-coming 2024 season that you've seen from the Pittsburgh Steelers thus far?
Well, it does seem like it's the end of the world because it was really bad. You know, it was bad showing last week in the preseason. I think honestly it'll be fine, man. I think this quarterback competition doesn't really exist. I believe that I've been saying from day dot, Wilson will be quarterback number one. He got a bit injured, so then Fields had more of a go, more of a turn, and Fields did look exciting out there. But then last week, both quarterbacks didn't really look the best, to be honest. But also, I think they're holding the offense back because also last year too, we were so excited with Kenny Pickett going absolutely amazing. We won all 3 preseason games, scoring TDs, moving the football down the field, and yeah, it was that turned it to mush when we went and versus the 49ers. A lot of Steelers fans now are very worried about the offensive line, worried about Wilson being older. that he hasn't got any more, that he's not a bust, that he's like, washed and done and it's all over. But we really haven't seen any real football yet in terms of week 1. So I'm not worried about it too much, to be honest. Like, I think things will play out. We got burnt last year. We're getting way too hyped. And now we're going the exact opposite way, where everyone's losing faith over a preseason game. It's a preseason game where he played 4 drives. He had 4 drives. The offensive line wasn't the best. Jones was on ice skates. Daniels didn't play very well. Zach Frazier did some things good, but it's not in one whole game. It's like, okay, that's the first time we saw Russell Wilson was him in the uniform, besides training camp. And that's what we get. I think the overall hype for him was like, oh, he's going to go out there and throw 4 or 5 TDs or 2 TDs. It's not going to happen that way. But in terms of like quarterback competition, I still believe it's going to be Russell Wilson, because that's Tomlin keeps talking about it, and they're going to go with him first. Only makes sense for him to go first, to be QB1. Then if he starts to fail, then you go Justin Fields. Now if they both start to fail, then we have to go to Kyle Allen. But that's what happened last year with the whole Rudolph thing too. We started with Trubisky and Kenny Pickett was in the mix, all that kind of stuff. They both weren't the best, and then we played Rudolph to win, to have a chance in the playoffs. Yeah. So it's not that crazy at the moment, but I think people are jumping off the train way too soon.
Yeah, no, I agree. And this is always my biggest thing, is because we know with Russell Wilson, like, he just has such an odd journey, because the fact that he comes in and he's a winning quarterback in Seattle with Pete Carroll, wins a Super Bowl, and all this talk about he doesn't get along with players, he's too private up into himself, but he's so overly optimistic. He comes to Denver, gets his own office. Nate Hackett comes in as a head coach, and then all of a sudden, all this started collapsing. Like, Nate Hackett was over his skis. In comes Sean Payton, an alpha head coach, and trying to get the best out of Russ. But then this whole, relationship you saw was so combative that it was just like, he's not executing it instinctively like he should. Oh, the overly optimistic, I have a feeling, kind of wears people out. But I think
that might be one thing.
Yeah. But with Mike Tomlin, this is what's funny about it. With understanding the relationship between the quarterback and with Mike Tomlin, is because Tomlin's a players type guy, right? He's a guy that's invested a lot with these players, very loyal with a lot of his coaching staff and guys. I mean, and this guy barely loses every single year. Looking into this season with Tomlin, is there a little bit of something on the back of your mind that you're thinking about, that if this doesn't go right with the Steelers, how do you think, Steeler Nation's honestly going to take it this season?
Oh, not well. Mate, Steeler Nation isn't happy if we get to if we win a playoff game and we get to the Super Bowl and we win by 30 points. Mm-hmm. There's a small majority, I think, of Yinders out there that are still very, very pissed off and angry about not winning a playoff game in 7 years. And that sucks. It's 100% true. We haven't done that, right? Yep. If everything falls apart, which, by the way, they're kind of like, I guess their backup plan is Fields. So that's why you would go Wilson first. And that doesn't work out. He's throwing picks. He doesn't fit the offense. But at the same time, we can't judge it yet because we haven't seen what happened in week 1. And therefore, even if it's bad in week 1, you still got to try and figure out what happens in week 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. The season isn't over. I was having an argument with one bloke, and I thought it was so stupid. He was saying the season's done. I was like, we haven't even started yet. Now I understand the frustration about how the miscues and the play execution and all that kind of stuff, but it hasn't started yet. So if Russell Wilson were to fail, that experiment were to fail, then yeah, they move into Justin Fields. They're both on 1-year contracts. Cole Allen, our quarterback number 3, he's on a 1-year contract. So in terms of the franchise, the Steelers don't have a franchise quarterback yet. And that is very, very different to what has been happening with Big Ben for 18 years. I've been a Steelers fan for 24, 25 years. So a huge majority of my Steelers fandom is just been one quarterback and really one coach, and Mike Tomlin, right? Mm-hmm. We just don't. And the Steelers haven't been last in the division since 1988. And I was born in 1989. So these things they just don't happen our direction. I'm super thankful that I've already seen 2 Super Bowl wins and seen another loss in terms of the Packers in my existence. Some fans out there have never seen one. Bengals have never seen a win. So I think Steel fans, in that sense, if it were to fall apart, yeah, man, it's gonna get pretty, like, pitchforks and torches and burn everything down. Every year they do it. I'm just sick of it.
It is a strong culture, when you think of Pittsburgh, Steel City. I mean, they're big on their football, and there is nowhere in the cards that the expectation is this team ends up falling short. I mean, that's just kind of the reality with this kind of culture and how strong that it's built over the last few years. The interesting part, what I had an outlook with the Steelers that I think is interesting this year. I'm a little curious as to how that offensive line really does build up, because I do feel like there's some shaky parts. But, however, even in my hometown of Vegas, I love what I've seen with Troy Fautanu out of Washington. Came here, went to Liberty High School. The kid looks great. And then you've also got Broderick Jones. So looking at this offensive line, is this kind of a slow cook type build with this offensive line to eventually show its potential? Like, how do you see this offensive line play?
I agree. Thank you. I do feel like in this generation now too, not generation, like the society we live in now, everybody wants something now, right? It's all, did the red button go off? Did I click the like? Did I do that kind of stuff? What's next? What's the next short? With this offense, the last few days have really intrigued me about the fan base, because now they're going after Broderick Jones, who's a second-year player, and he's had 2 bad games in preseason. But you look back to last year in the Rudolph run with the playoff game. I don't know the stats or anything like that, but just from what I remember seeing, he was playing right tackle. Dan Moore was playing, I believe he was playing left at the time. So Jones was playing right tackle because somebody was out. I think Chooks might have been. Oh, that's right. That's when Chooks core for. I think he had said something to the coaching staff and said, I want more playing time, or so there was a disagreement there. And then Jones started playing more right tackle, and he was playing fine. Run game was playing fine. And we're basing this off some snaps, so we see him go backwards and get pushed back like he was on ice skates. And now the world's over. Like I saw some comments on the Mike Tomlin press conference going after him, saying Mike Tomlin should retire and hang up the bootlaces and get done. He's got a 4-year extension, and also they're saying that Broderick Jones is a bust. I'm like, that makes zero sense to me. That some fan bases can't take the adversity or take the L. The Bills played better than us. Whoever the bloke was rushing Jones on the outside, he beat him 3 times, and for good measure. They had a better defensive plan, and no one's really talking about our Steelers defense, how we only allowed them to 9 points. And in certain circumstances too, they were going for 4th downs and they weren't kicking a field goal to be 9-6. It's not a real game. The preseason isn't a real game. The offensive line, I think, will get better over time. Broderick Jones, I think the Steelers have said that they will eventually move him to left tackle. Now, depending if that is the best move when Troy Fautanu gets back at right tackle, do they move Dan Moore behind those guys? Could be an option. But a lot of fans also go after Dan Moore, and I think he's a good player, but not a great player. So offensive line is so much better, in my opinion, than it has been in the last 2 or 3 years. When we had who's the other bloke there, the Texan guy, Kendrick Green. He plays the Texans down the center. Now we did have Dotson. He's now playing really good football with the Rams. But there was a reason why we cut him too. We cut him because they brought in Cia Marlowe, and we traded him away and we got some picks back. I think Steel Nation just goes back to, if you cut someone and they play good somewhere else, they bring it up. If you cut someone and not everyone too, you cut someone and they play somewhere else, then maybe you don't bring it up. You know what I mean? So it's a bit like that. Yeah,
it's an interesting kind of outlook, and that's where I think, this offensive line, I mean, it's got to figure itself out. It's a slow cook, a slow build, at the end of the day. And so, yeah, and it's kind of a hard thing, because even me being America's honesty mind, I'm in a caffeinated society where everybody wants results right now, but
100%.
You got to see 2 sides of the story to really kind of find the silver lining.
The people just don't want to enjoy the journey. I have found that being on YouTube the last 4 years, and my audience knows this 100%. I shout out to everyone from Steel Nation Oz. Do they not want to enjoy the journey? Like, Warren's now out for an injury. Troy Fautanu's out. We haven't seen Roman Wilson yet. And some part of the fan base is giving up, saying, we're going to go 4-15 or whatever. I've always enjoyed the journey that is football. If you make the whole way, fantastic. If you don't, you enjoy the little storylines. And this now is a bit of a speed hunt for Broderick Jones and a bit of a speed hunt for the offensive line. They're now even calling to fire Pat Myers' head. Why would you want to fire an offensive line coach, before the beginning of the season?
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, and that's the thing. It's like everybody's expectations and all this other stuff is so different than what you and we usually break down following these teams. I'm curious though, because this has been something I'm hoping will be interesting to watch is Najee Harris and Jalen Warren. I think the
Mhm.
two of them, very good duo package. But we know that Najee Harris, his fifth year option was not picked up. So it feels to me like there's a prove it type of factor from here. How do you evaluate Najee Harris this year? Because honestly, this guy hardly coughs up the football. And so I'm just like, is this more of a push of motivation to have him really go off this year in 24? Or is there kind of something else in the works?
I think he will. When I saw him, he caught the football not this week, last week. He just looks like slimmer, more muscle on his body. He looks like faster, more physical. I think Najee and the Omar Khan and Steelers contract is kind of interesting because obviously the Steelers declined the option, right? Declined and said, well, we don't have the 5th-year option, but I guess they kind of. I don't know. I'm not too sure if I think Najee will play well this year, to be honest. I think he'll get 1,000 yards. I think he'll play well. He gets 4.4 yards to carry. Now, a lot of the fan base always says that he's terrible and they want to cut him and get someone else. But now we've got Warren's been injured. And I still believe it is the 1A, 1B. Warren's fantastic, by the way. One of my favorite players on the team. But Najee himself, for his contract, he has a big year. Then there'll be other teams out there. So we might lose him for another team paying more money in that sense. But it kind of works out both ways because now you're not locked down to a massive contract if something happens. But if they can give him maybe a Steeler discount, or maybe he comes back to the team for the Steelers and wants to play for us for the next 3 years, then that'll hopefully work out too. But in terms of this year, I think he's checked in. I don't know if you saw any highlights, but I think he's checked in this year to be behind this Arthur Smith offense that's more run base. But having the injury to Warren, hopefully he comes back week 1 or week 2 because it is a 1-2 punch. But at the same time, Najee can take the brunt of the load because he did it in the rookie year with Big Ben. He caught over 60 footballs as a rookie, and I think he had like over 80 carries or something like that. Like he can be the number 1 running back, but now I think Mike Tomlin is moving towards using not just the Le'Veon Bell cow, no pun intended, running back situation where they're using Najee and Warren and the third down back. But I think it's a good thing for him too. So when Najee goes in there, has a big year, he'll have options at the end of the year. Meaning he can sign with us, sign with someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, and like I said, you can never go wrong going and getting a running back up and in the draft because there's about like maybe 3 or 4 of them potentially, next year's draft that I really am liking to see what they do this year in college football. So there's a lot of those options as well too. 2 more before letting you go is, this defense, I've loved with the look of it, for the last few years with Minkah Fitzpatrick, TJ Watt. This year, I've been hearing a lot of very good buzzes about Peyton Wilson. So we know Steelers, Steel Curtain, defensive culture. They are big on, their shutdown defenses. Now, sometimes in these competitions, I mean, Chase and I, we talked about it as Chase is a diehard Cleveland Browns fan. This AFC North is such a bloodbath to me that I feel like you're going to get all 4 of these teams going at it, fighting for those spots. I mean, but the defense, however, I feel like may end up accounting for a lot of what Pittsburgh's wins may be as long as that offense builds that fluidity and gets going. How do you kind of see this defense really panning out? Because I feel like there's a couple games on this schedule this year, that defense is going to have to bail them out in some ways.
Big time. And I've been saying this for a few weeks too. In terms of that schedule where we play the AFC North, 4 games in a row, we play the Eagles, we play the Chiefs, we play whoever. I'm at this point, I'm a bit like Cameron Hayward. I don't care. Like, I think fans, if you follow your team, you have to remember that team has to play you too. Yep. Do you know what I'm saying? We always get worried about the other team and then coming in and being the offense and this, and this. They still have to play you too. They have to play TJ Watt. They've got to play Minkah. They've got to play Elliott in the safety. They've got to play Patrick Queen. They've got to play Elandon Roberts. He was a great pickup, by the way. Elandon Roberts from the Patriots. I think he played for the Dolphins too, or something like that. He won 2 Super Bowls with the Patriots. He's our middle linebacker. I think he'll be number 2 next to Queen. Queen's going to run around from the Ravens. Going to have the green dot, get people set up. Keanu Benton's going to look really awesome up front. Ogunjobi, no one's really talked about him, but he's been sold in preseason so far on the D-line. Cameron Hayward's coming back. Pissed off, by the way, at his own fans, and I think other people in the media are saying he can't do it anymore because he's older, and he's that some people are saying get rid of him. There's a few Steelers you can't get rid of, and I'll name a few. Cameron Hayward, you'd never trade him away. TJ Watt, you never get rid of him, and same with Minka. There's just a few on the defense you just don't get rid of. And even to a certain extent, some are saying get rid of Highsmith, because the Herbig's coming up. It's good to have more than one problem. So TJ Watt, Highsmith on the other side. And yes, a lot of fan base does come back to, we're gonna verse 4 games in a row against the AFC North. But they're versing us too. You know what I'm saying? I always forget. I think that's crazy to me. It's like we won the division, not one, but we had the most wins in the division last year, 5-1. And to chase the Browns fan there, thank you for beating us 13-10 because we fired Matt Canada, right? He was awful. And Trubisky threw 3 picks in that game. No, that was versus the Ravens. He threw 3 picks, and we beat the Ravens 7-1. The Steelers have Lamar's number. I think TJ Watt loves to play AFC North football. And yes, when he's out, had records really bad, 1-11, something like that. He loves to play Watson. We sacked him, I think, 7 times in the last game or whatnot. We also love to play Joe Burrow, and TJ Watt loves him. Minka, played preseason, but he went through the motions, wasn't really doing too much. These guys are getting ready for the season and getting ready for AFC North football, which is it could honestly be one of the toughest divisions in the NFL. But like I said, with our defense, yes, it has to lock teams down under 20 while the offense starts to figure it out. It's a brand new system, brand new coach, brand new quarterback, brand new center exchange. I think that's why the fan base has to give a little bit of leniency. They still want the Super Bowl tomorrow, right? They don't really paying attention. Okay, all these you wanted Matt Canada fired? Great. Now here's the new guy. Can you give the new guy Arthur Smith a chance? That's what I'm looking for because they're going to yell his name out. They'll be fire Smith.
Oh yeah. And like I said, a lot of these, strong cultures, like even with Philadelphia, they will let you hear it like all throughout it. If they are not exceeding expectations, they're not dominating on their side of the ball. So with that being said, because I asked every single one of my guests that I've had on that have been close with this team, covering this team, where do you see the realistic record place for the Steelers and what to expect this upcoming season?
The realistic one I really see, to be honest, I'd probably say 11-6. I think 11-6, you get one more win than I think last year we had 10-7, and we made the playoffs, and we had the crazy weather with the Buffalo Bills, and I don't blame the weather because they were saying they couldn't play the first day, and it was chaos with the traffic. That's fine. We played the next day. The Bills took us to town. Rudolph threw picks. We dropped some Pickens dropped some things. It was not a good execution on that day. The Bills were the better team. Much better team than us. They let Josh Allen run for 50-something yards. But for the season, I'd probably say 11-6 is a good expectation. Or maybe like a reality. If they were to win 11 games this season, could be a chance for the North. I actually believe this year the North won't be a 13-win team. I think it might be 11 or 12 or maybe even a 10. We're hovering around where some of the AFC North, the Browns, the Bengals, the Ravens could all be hovering around 10, 11 wins. And whoever's got the better record in the AFC North with the division versus each other might win. Now, of course, I want to see them go 14 and whatever, or 14-3 would be fantastic. But I think, winning 11 games, hovering around the wild card, it would be awesome because our defense can, like you said, our defense is going to help our team out in terms of the offense getting ready. And also, if all this crap goes away, because the national media, Dan Orlovsky, a lot of blokes out there, are picking on Wilson. I think even Stephen A. Smith, apparently he's a Steelers fan. I don't know how he is. Doesn't seem like he is. But he's giving a lot of shade now. Colin Cowherd giving a lot of shade towards Russell Wilson, saying he's done. But he hasn't even started yet. So if Russell Wilson gets back to his form where he doesn't do too many crazy things throwing interceptions, Russell Wilson gets back to his form and finds a rhythm and can score 24, 27 points a game. This might remind us of like a 2004 or 2008 season where the Steelers just need to play solid defense on the outside with the corners, rush with TJ Watt being healthy. Queen's going to go crazy in the middle, and then we can lock guys down for 13, 14. But that's just me playing Madden. But I would say 11-6 is my kind of answer.
Well, it is interesting, though. But again, I have the highest expectation with this AFC North that I do feel like we're going to get a lot of grit and gridiron football at the end of the day. And I think this is going to be a division fun to watch, So I'm keeping my eyes out in this division. And it's good to even say with the defense and even with the special teams, because I do have a very good friend of mine, went to high school with, who's there on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Miles Killebrew, I expect great expectations with him after getting the much bigger contract now. So I'm very proud of him. Happy Foothill alumni. So I'm expecting.
You went to high school with that bloke, Killebrew.
Yeah, I did.
Dude, he's one of our good ones. He's almost like a lot of Steel fans. We have a thing called like a true Steel. Like TJ Watt's a true Steeler, Mink is a true Steeler, Cameron. He's getting up there where he could be known as a true Steeler because he is he's now a special teams captain, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
And he's a bloke that every single year just seems like he blocks a punt.
Yeah,
he's up there. I think for the Steelers, he's done 3 or 4.
Yeah, he's done multiples of them. And this is a guy that's drafted by Detroit. You know, he came into the league, didn't quite get into the roster spot. The expectation was not quite there. He comes into Pittsburgh, and then all of a sudden they find a diamond in the rough. That's where I'm very happy and excited for him. But
he takes his role too. His role is a special teamer and play. You never really see him play too much defense. And people don't really talk about teams that much. But teams are kind of fun to watch. On the kickoff returns now, the new one and the punt return. And yeah, Killebrew is that guy that leads the teams. I think he's going to be up there. Same with Cameron Hayward. I think he'll be up there. Now he's back with his mate Tyler Matakevich. He's back on the teams too. So yeah, that's awesome. You went to school with. That's cool.
Oh yeah, man. I have yet to have him up onto the show. That's why I'm working on it pretty hard, man. So yeah, we've just been cooking, we've been grinding, and man, the show has just been absolutely unbelievable these last couple of weeks. But appreciate you, my friend. Where can people find you to get locked in on the Steelers this year?
Yeah, your best bet is of course on YouTube. It's Steeler Nation Australia. I pretty much talk Pittsburgh Steelers every day or every second day. And now that we're ramping up into content, we have to, as you're doing too with your show. And I think you're doing the Charger stuff, right? You're doing Charger Syndicate?
Yep, Charger
Syndicate. Yeah, man. You're all over the shop. So we know our middleman is Grid or Derek, and he's a great bloke. And I started the Pittsburgh Steelers Syndicate with him 3 years ago. But now I'm on Steel Nation Oz. And yeah, I'm just talking football. My real role, dude, and key, I just want to get fans pumped up and keen to watch football and be optimistic and excited about the season. It's not over. It's not over just because Broderick Jones went back 3 feet and got owned. In that sense, that should make him more determined to win. I think sometimes in life we need to handle defeat, and I think sometimes when we handle defeat and we want to get better, right? And then that's in YouTube sense, that's in life sense, that's in football sense, in any kind of sense. Just because we lose a rep or we lose a game or Broderick Jones gets manhandled, then maybe next week versus the Lions, shout out to Grid, then maybe he steps back up. So yeah, check me out on Steel Nation Oz. My real role, I just want to get people having fun. It's like a beer environment. You come in, it's like cheers, everyone knows your name. You have a good time, and then hopefully at the end, actually I would like it because I'm gonna have a cheeky jab here. If it was Steelers versus Chargers in the playoffs, I think I would like it because I've seen the football part against us.
Oh yeah, that like I said, we have been waiting for that time and for that moment where we get our payback in at the same time. It'd be a great gridiron matchup, man. For over the years, I've watched football and watched that particular matchup in the playoffs.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, that was fun back in the day with Rivers and Big Ben. And I mean, there was a one with we won was 11-9 or something in the snow. There was some crazy match with Steelers versus Chargers.
Oh, it was insane, man. But appreciate you coming on by, man. It's always good to know that the NFL getting so global, going around the world, and you got people covering teams, especially with the content you put up out there. Steeler Nation letting them know. Appreciate you for jumping on by, Mark. Take care of yourself, and we shall see how the Steelers pan out this season.
Thanks, man. I'll see you later. Thank you.
Absolutely. Cheers, my friend. All right. Well, we are moving on from the Steel City, and we're going right down into the desert because we know that I've explained it to multiple people. And, for our audiences on the show that understand what I'm saying, this was, I think, by far the worst team in the NFC last year with what they finished up under Jonathan Gannon and how the defense, Trey McBride, now Kyler Murray being absolutely healthy, and now having a new offensive weapon in Marvin Harrison Jr. So here to join us, the Arizona sports fan for everything Arizona. Mike joins us here on the show. So, I mean, it makes sense, right? When I describe it as the worst team, meaning yes, this team is obviously going to go through its worst spurt. However, it ain't about how you start. It's about how you finish, and then you go into the next season with the expectation that this team is going to be fully healthy. You've got brand new pieces. and the team's ready to roll. And now with Kyler Murray being back healthy, hopefully this team could look a lot better under Jonathan Gannon. So how did you evaluate last year and then what the expectations going into this year will look like for the Arizona Cardinals?
Awesome. Well, just first things first, appreciate you for having me on, Jake. I absolutely appreciate it. And I like that you actually said that about the Arizona Cardinals, because you don't hear a lot of people talk good things about the Cardinals at all. But yeah, I completely agree. I think with the Arizona Cardinals, the way that they finish, there's a lot of promise when it comes down to just the Cardinals in general, in terms of like the physicality, the culture change. And you don't really know what I mean, but I mean culture change, because like there was just so much bad yuckiness when it comes down to the Cardinals organization with the last regime and everything that kind of happened. There's this whole thing that happened in Mexico. It was just this whole weird thing. Now that we cleaned up shop and now have Monty Ossenfort and Jonathan Gannon, you could tell that this team is very, very pro Jonathan Gannon. They know that, or at least they're following, right? They're actually believing in what he's actually preaching, which is good. And you don't really see Kyler Murray smile very often under the last regime, but he's smiling a lot now in training camp, preseason, anything surrounded the Cardinals. He's always have a smile on his face, and it's really, really cool. But yeah, continue to talk about last year. They were very, very a physical team when people didn't expect the Cardinals to do anything last year. Now, granted, yes, we only won 4 games, but like, we played a lot of teams pretty darn tough. Now, I guess the biggest shock one was probably the Cowboys earlier in the season, but the biggest one late in the season was the Eagles game where they were demolishing us, and we ended up coming back, and a lot of Eagles fans were absolutely pissed off, and it kind of made me excited about that. But like, even the 49ers, we played tough. We heard George Kittle. We heard Nick Bosa talk about how physical this Arizona Cardinals team was. So it's a step in the right direction, definitely. And now having Kyler Murray fully healthy from the get, people forget he's a 2-time Pro Bowler, Offensive Rookie of the Year, right? And it's easy to forget, especially if you're talking about the Cardinals, an organization that we're coming off 2 back-to-back 4-win seasons, one with Cliff Kingsbury, and then the other one with Jonathan Gannon just starting at the helm. So it's easy to forget what he did, but man, we're excited here in the desert. A lot of us are very optimistic about what Kyler could do. And you mentioned the weapons that we got, right? Trey McBride, up and coming superstar, hopefully in our eyes, at tight end, which we never had before. James Conner, one of the most hardest running guys we've had. And you just had a Steelers guy, so he probably knows about James Conner as well. So, and Marvin Harrison Jr., add him. Michael Wilson going into his second year. We added Zay Jones. Greg Dortch is a dog. So we're really excited about the offensive weapons. There's still a little unknown with the defense, and I think we'll get into that a little later on. But yeah, definitely high praises and a lot of excitement here in the desert for the Cardinals.
I'll tell you what, though, like, speaking of Kyler Murray smiling, I'm sure like off the field, he's usually smiling when his kill-death ratio is literally like off the charts. But that's another story for another time. But yeah, I mean, I felt like Kyler Murray, the previous years, they've been distracted years. And I think it was something that, when you have a culture guy, and I use these things for example, when you got an Andy Reid, you got a Kyle Shanahan, you get a Jim Harbaugh, you get culture guys that are setting, the tone in this organization that players buy into. So to me, I feel very good of the fact that Kyler Murray feels like he's buying into this product, that he's going to come out, he's going to show up, and he's going to prove to people like, look, I was distracted, but now I'm fully focused and I'm ready to play from here. So, looking at it with Kyler Murray, and yeah, being a former Pro Bowler, a former Rookie of the Year, especially with how the NFC West really is going to turn out, because I have a very strong feeling the Cardinals may end up finishing as a good third place team, in my opinion. What says you?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think this Cardinals team has a very, very real shot. I think it's all contingent on health. We were watching a lot of preseason games and just kind of the evaluation of we have. I think in terms of like the starters, I think a lot of us are confident in what we got. Biggest, weakest point is probably the edge rusher on the defensive side of the ball. But as long as Kyler Murray can stay healthy, I think we can go as far as he can take us. And I think we've seen Kyler Murray go 10-3, right? We've had a undefeated season for, I believe it was like a 7-game stretch. So, I mean, we know that we can do it, right? As long as Kyler can stay healthy, I think this Arizona Cardinal team can make some noise. And it's a different offense too. A lot of people don't really talk about how different this offense is compared to what we were running before with Cliff Kingsbury, just to kind of air raid, spread them out, 5 people protect. And if they send a blitz, you're kind of, Kyler Murray has to play superhero all the time. This offense isn't dependent on Kyler Murray being a superhero anymore. Obviously, he can run out of the pocket if need be, but we're mainly going to be running the ball. James Conner is going to be the workhorse. We're probably going to have Trey Benson have a big workload maybe towards the later part of the season, but Mario DeMarco, Michael Carter, we got weapons in the backfield. I think we're going to primarily be a running team. Now that might be 55, 60%. It's not going to be like too crazy, but I think we're going to be a running team. Kyler Murray has some weapons on the outside with Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr. But yeah, I could definitely very well see this Cardinal organization / team be a solid 3 in the division. And it's such a tough division too. The NFC West is always going to have the 49ers, always kind of feel like they're competing for the Super Bowl every year. And then you got the Rams. Now, I'm not too high on the Seahawks, but kudos to them. They're supposed to be going to a rebuild year, and they just win. They find a way to win. So definitely kudos to them. But I can definitely very well see the Cardinals being a 3 in the division, but with the good record for sure.
Yeah, because I just feel like with the Seahawks, and usually with any team that gets a brand new coach, usually sometimes it's growing pains.
Yep.
Get through it in the first year, and then you see how the second year turns out, much like with what's happening with Jonathan Gannon. You go through the growing pains first year, second year, you then expect to pop. And so I think, there's a lot of potentiality, and defense, like you said, there's question marks there up on the field, but hopefully Gannon, defensive-minded, can understand exactly how the defensive schemes will set up and hopefully get some hidden gems there on certain positions. So the first receiver taken in this draft in a loaded receiving core, Marvin Harrison Jr. And I've seen some pictures where his dad, a Colts great, but then also another former Cardinal that I used to love watching, even from the Colts and the Cardinals, Edgerrin James comes in, and he gives him some advices, really kind of motivates him up from here. I mean, this is kind of the product we all have been long awaiting to see, to translate from Ohio State, a big-time program in the Big Ten, to now being in the pros. And they have produced a lot of very good receivers over the years. How do you expect Marvin Harrison, knowing the NFC, because I think this is a revamp of this entire conference, quarterbacks, receiver play, now you got great defensive players as well. How do you really see him really tackle this on, knowing that he's going to have a bunch of one-on-one matchups and he's going to have opportunities where he's going to try to light up the end zone this year?
Yeah, I mean, with Marvin, obviously I think it's very contingent on Kyler staying healthy as well. I mean, I have faith in our quarterbacks behind Kyler, but Kyler is QB1 for a reason. But I can definitely very well see, Marvin Harrison Jr. being Rookie of the Year. And I think a lot of us here in the Cardinals, fandom, as well as here in the Valley, we believe that this is one of the best prospects we've seen coming out of college in a very, very long time. And everybody's already saying this is as good as it gets when it comes down to like Larry Fitzgerald. Like we're bringing Larry Fitzgerald in the mix here. Now, obviously, kind of 2 different players, and we've already kind of heard Larry's take on him, and he has faith in him as well. And I think he can have a really good season. And he's got a good offense with Drew Petzing and just this organization with Kyler Murray at the helm. I think he could very well be a very, very good wide receiver. He's going to be slotted as 1. Like that's what it is. We got a solid number 2 in Michael Wilson. We got Greg Dortch in the slot and then Trey McBride. So yeah, he can very well see a lot of, one-on-one coverage with, the opposing DB. So I'm excited to see what he can do. Now, obviously I really want to see what he looks like in an NFL game. We were kind of robbed with that it was week 1 of preseason. They were like, oh, he's going to play. He played 1 drive and it was 3 and out. So he was like literally in and out. Week 2, we didn't see him. So I still kind of want to see what he shows up. I have faith that he can be very, very good. It's just in order for me to have a real evaluation, I want to see what he does in week 1 versus the Buffalo Bills.
Oh, I agree. Because when you get a good idea, especially with offensive weapons, you have an idea how the offensive scheme is going to look like once you plug in that quarterback, and then you just see how the offense works as a whole. Yep. So I know with covering the Arizona Cardinals and for Arizona sports as long as you have, they have, I've expressed my thoughts in when I felt very bad for Arizona Coyote fans because they have been like, it was the inaugural, hockey in the desert. First ones to start it off with, in Phoenix. And I felt like that journey road all the way to the end felt just, I don't even know how to even explain it, but it was just like there was no kind of build for this. They're sharing a hockey rink with Arizona State, and I'm just like, what in the hell's going on? Now they moved to Utah. I know with the Cardinals, they have had spurts where, even as yours truly being no Jake the Snake, with Jake the Snake Plummer at the time, and then moving through the years where Kurt Warner gets them to a Super Bowl, and then arguably one of the greatest Cardinals there wearing the uniform, Larry Fitzgerald. This team had potential, and then it just seemed like, is there even a plan? Like, I look at the Bidwells, and I'm just like, you are with what your ownership is. So with covering this team as long as you have, going from the ups and the downs, I feel like this year could be building something special and something that I think the Cardinal fans really are going to have great hopes for, hopefully for the future, I assume.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think a lot of Cardinal fans have their own opinion on the Bidwell family and just Michael Bidwell in general. I think we can all say that we were excited when the new regime came in. We're not used to looking at preseason and looking at these rookies that we just got, or even second-year players, and doing very well in preseason. We're not used to that. We're not used to saying, oh, these guys can make the 53, right? Well, we're not used to that. So this is a different level of a rebuild that we're kind of not used to. I mean, granted, we went through 10 plus years with Steve Keim. He had his own kind of mantra, but he did not know how to draft to save his life. Where Monty Ossenfort, you can find a gem in the 4th round or the 5th round. And it's really exciting to see that, because you building longevity in an NFL team, you need to be able to build a draft, right? Obviously free agency and trades is a crucial point too, but being able to draft and getting a very talented, hungry player that's very good in the NFL and playing them in a minimal salary compared to free agency or a trade, there's a lot of upside to that, and just kind of roster building in general. So yeah, I mean, we've seen a shift with the culture with Monty and Jonathan Gannon, obviously Monty being front office, and then you got Jonathan Gannon here at the head coach. So I think we're all excited. Now we're always going to think about Bidwell. He's always going to be like the thorn in our side, especially when the Cardinals organization decided to get a candy burrito. I don't know what that's about. Don't even ask me about that correct candy burrito, but continue to talk about, I think we're all excited because the draft is we're excited about draft night, and it's not just round 1, round 2, round 3, round 4, round 5, and beyond, because of Monty's ability to be able to pick up gems. And I think that's going to go a long way. We're not seeing it now. I'm seeing it in year 2. So a lot of Cardinal fans have not jumped on the bandwagon yet, but wins bring it on. And I think the Cardinals are going to turn it around this year. And I'm just excited about it.
So finally, and I ask a lot of people this, because especially closest covering their teams, how do you see, this season pan out with the NFC, I think, going into a humongous wave, quarterback play getting better, defensive stacking up, and then at the same time, the offensive weaponry is just endless. So your record prediction for this team and what we should be able to expect, because honestly, the Arizona Cardinals were my best worst team last year. I now have the Carolina Panthers this year, but interesting to kind of see the outlook with the Arizona Cardinals this year.
So for me, and I think it all is all contingent on the health of this, starters and what we have, primarily Kyler Murray. But I could solidly say that I truly feel like the Cardinals can be a 8 to 9 win team. And I get it. Our schedule's pretty tough. It's a tough schedule, especially in the beginning, where we're starting off with the Bills, the Rams, where we can never seem to get over the hump because they beat us a lot. And then I believe it's the Lions in week 3. So we got a tough stretch, but I do believe in what we've built, the offense, and how different it's going to look with Kyler Murray. It's just going to be a different. So I can see this Arizona Cardinals team having 8 to 9 wins. And I think that will make us the number 3 in the division. I'm not going to come out here and say the Cardinals are going to Super Bowl. There's steps to get there. And I feel like the Cardinals in year 2 is going to take that extra step, but I do feel like 8 to 9 wins is reasonable.
Love it, man. I'm excited for this NFL season. That's why, getting the interviews as Chase and I are, we're just digesting all of this information, because by the time kickoff in week 1 starts, it's game on for everybody. So, and so at that point, there's no excuses. There ain't no turning back. You got to play it week to week, and we'll see how the rest of the season pans out. But appreciate you, Mike, joining us. Where can people find you getting in on all that desert football with the Arizona Cardinals?
Best way to find out, just basically, or find me is AZ Sports Fan anywhere on YouTube, Twitter, or X, and then Instagram as well. Those are the primary social medias, but the podcast mainly lives on YouTube. I do also go on to Bleacher Report as well. So if you're a big fan of Bleacher Report, I am hosting there for Cardinals coverage there as well.
Well, there you go, guys. Check it out. Bleacher Report as well with the Arizona Cardinals staying in close with the team. Appreciate you, Mike, joining us here. Have a great rest of your week, and we shall see how the Arizona Cardinals pan out this 24 season. Take care, my friend.
All right, bye.
Absolutely. All right. Chase, we're digesting all this stuff in, and it's just like, we've had great interviews. I mean, last week was amazing. So we're already kicking off this week with 2 real good interviews, Steelers and Cardinals. There's still plenty more and more to go around. So, but
yeah,
I don't know, man. How did you feel about the 11-6 expectation? That was interesting.
I think that like he's a realistic Steelers fan, but also kind of one of those Steelers fans that are a little full of himself at the same time, just because, like, Steelers fans always tell me not to live in the past and everything, but I think that they've been blessed with so many good seasons, and all these Steelers fans forget to realize that every team, like in the NFL throughout their history, goes through a spell where they're bad for 10 to 20 years. And the Browns were good in like the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. It wasn't until the 2000s when we came back is when we started, being terrible. The Steelers were bad from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And then the early to mid 70s when they finally got Terry Bradshaw is when they started, finally taking off and being good. But they didn't sack Watson 7 times. The whole TJ Watt argument of being 1-11 when he's out and everything, it's not all because of TJ. It's mostly because the defense performs, the offense just can't put up the numbers to go with it. And I think you do have to worry about the offensive line a little bit. I understand that they're young, they're new, and they're growing. But in the same time, that was the Buffalo Bills starting defense. And if they're doing that against the Bills defense, what are they going to do against, Justin Madubuike and, Myles Garrett and Trey Hendrickson and stuff like that, and going up against the defenses like that. And there's just so much that you got to digest and so much that you got to look at and so much nitpicking that you can do back and forth and whatnot. And they went 5-1 in the division, but that was also without a healthy Joe Burrow and a healthy Cleveland Browns team and everything. So of course, it's very easy to dominate a division like that when you don't have healthy players and everything, and you're going, based off of, just going in there and relying solely on your defense to win you games. And people always tell me, don't think about the past and everything, focus on the now. And and then every argument that they bring up is about the past and what they've done and how many Super Bowls they've got and whatnot and blah, blah, blah. So I think that he's a realistic one, but he's also not at the same time.
Well, and the only thing is when you closely cover the team and at the same time, I was dealing with this, it feels a lot like the last month where I'm getting a lot of the hecklers and it's the same defense. It's the same stuff over and over again. But this is why come that first week of the NFL season, there ain't no going back in the past. This is now you are now in the front windshield of the NFL season. You ain't looking at the rearview mirror, so you got to go against every single opponent in front of you, and the outcome is going to be the outcome. I mean, that's ultimately what happens, So, especially when we got our division, predictions from here. So, unfortunately, I wish I would have had the graphics, put up in time. And you know, look, man, we get slammed with this stuff all the time, but you know, we're gonna basically try it up this way. So, all right. So, are you ready for it, man? Our division standings for the AFC. This is gonna be interesting to see.
Yes, sir.
All right. So here we go. So let's start because the AFC this year has an awful lot to really outlook. So we're going to start with the AFC East. Now, I said it, this division is not an easy cakewalk, in my opinion. So I'm going to start from the bottom to the top. So the fourth place team is clear. I talked with Colby Cochran of Patriots Global. He knows the idea. I see this team going 5-12 because now this could be a good 5-12 team, depending on how offensive schemes look like, Drake May's build, and what Gerard Mayo really brings to the table up on the defense. But it's clear it's a rebuilding, organization at this point. They're trying to accumulate, draft capital, but they'll definitely nab a top 5, top 10 pick in the NFL draft. I wouldn't even be surprised that if it got to that point where they get the number 1 overall pick, they could utilize that as leverage. So that's interesting to talk about for another time. Third, sorry, Jets fans, but I just feel like the Jets could be a third place team, in my opinion. I just feel like there was way too much noise in the organization with the Aaron Rodgers stuff, Hassan Reddick not happy at camp. There's just too much of this noise that's going around. So I think, to me personally, because a lot of Jet fans, they've been getting the expectation of the idea that, the Jets are going to run away with the division. I don't think so. Not when you have to trump a team who's been winning it for 4 straight years. That's usually it's very harder than you think it is. So I have the Jets. Realistically, I see them sitting up at third place. Second place, I'm going to give some love to the Miami Dolphins. The only reason of this is because watching Mike McDaniel, what he's done with this offense. Now, they were a bit gutted with as far as the linebackers and a bit of some edge rushers, but I felt like bringing in Chop Robinson next to Jalen Phillips, it may end up helping that defense. Anthony Weaver's got some tricks up his sleeve, especially with a secondary that looks very, very good. Now you get experience in Jordan Poyer. I'm excited to see what that looks like.
They got Bradley Chubb as well, too.
That's true, and he'll be coming back from injury. So there's some interesting optimism with the Miami Dolphins, but they love their speed. I just am curious because Tua in that contract, the cold weather, and so those are the factors that I feel like could be a big deal for the Miami Dolphins. But I have them sitting as a second place team this year, and then first place, I've got the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen. How could you possibly underestimate a guy that going into this season, they're making the playoffs 74% of the time? That's without Stephon Diggs. And not only that, but in camp, we've been hearing some very good buzzes between him and Keon Coleman's relationship that's starting to build up very strong. And this is the year for Sean McDermott to get this right. Because the fact that you lose both your 1 and your 2 receivers, that's going to be pretty interesting to watch there. Not to mention, I feel like the offensive line, I'm curious to see how this plays out, but I also do understand the fact that they got rid of a lot of the olds, bringing in the new with their defense. This is the same thing that I think we're seeing with Tampa Bay, but I think Buffalo, with the confidence that they have in Josh Allen, and not to mention, Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator, comes in, cleaned up a little bit of the act. Josh Allen starting to score. I think the Bills will be fine. So I got the Bills, the Dolphins, the Jets, and the New England Patriots in the AFC East. Any changes up on there?
Yeah, there is actually. So I do have at fourth place the New England Patriots as well. I think that they are in full rebuild mode, but Gerard Mayo has yet to announce the starting quarterback because going into it like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, everybody thought, it's fully on Jacoby Brissett, no question about it. But this past preseason game where Drake May had played almost 3 full quarters, there was a lot to like about it. And the thing is, like, Brian Hoyer said it best, that this dude is learning and getting better every single day, because he has not only, like, asked, like, himself, or like Drake May has asked Brian Hoyer, but also other quarterbacks to, like, sit down and watch the film with him, tell him what he needs to get better on. He's been going over a lot of the plays after practice with the offensive line, trying to get the reads down, trying to get, different things. And this guy wants to get better and wants to learn, and I think that's going to be huge. Not to mention, Elliott Wolf is not going to be a guy that's going to sit idly by. If the Patriots are, like, let's say 5-4 going into the trade deadline and everything, he's not a guy that'll sit idly by and be like, okay, if we can get one more good weapon for this guy, then we might actually be able to make a push and turn this stuff around. So, like, I do think that they could have a 6 or 7 win season, but I do agree with you that they're going to be in 4th place. Now, in 3rd place, I disagree with you. I think the Miami Dolphins will go in 3rd place in this division, just because you see a lot of, things that you want to nitpick about. They play very, very bad in the cold. Tua is not used to it, being from Hawaii and then playing in Alabama and everything. And you saw last year how the cold weather affected him a lot. And then, not to mention, Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle cannot stay healthy to save their lives. Like, we have a lot of injuries that involve those two. Tua's also slimmed down, so he's more likely to get hurt. I don't want him to, and nobody wants him to, but it's more likely to happen. And then, just not to mention that the offense is stale. Like, when they play good defenses, they fold a little bit, and you see that. And in 2nd place, I got the New York Jets, and here's the reason why. Last year, the Jets held 90% of their opponents to 19 points or less. And I disagree with what Bert says. Sauce Gardner is one of the better corners in the league, if not the best corner. I get so sick and tired of Tim and Bert dissing on the Jets and everything. But you bring in Mike Williams, you bring in Tyron Smith, one of the better left tackles in the league, veteran, and then you draft not Troy Fatanu, it's Olu Fashanu out of Penn State, and to play the other tackle, the right tackle, or move him over to left tackle and everything. And so I think that with the chemistry that Aaron Rodgers has built with Garrett Wilson and Mike Williams coming in there, Malachi Corley, nobody's talking about him and how good he's been playing recently. I think this Jets team, with the defense the way it is and with Aaron Rodgers being fully healthy, I think that they could potentially fight for the top of that division, but it's easily going to the Bills. I agree with you on that. Like, when you have had the success that you've had, and it's hard to bet against Josh Allen, just like Patrick Mahomes. It's hard to bet against him. It's hard to bet against Josh Allen and this Bills team, but with guys like Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, Khalil Shakir, he's developed good chemistry with over the past, couple years. And then, not to mention, like you said, his rapport with Keon Coleman, I think it's easily going to be the Bills, Jets, Dolphins, Patriots.
Yeah, no, it is interesting and something to kind of keep an eye out for. So, all right, well, we got the East. Now let's go down to the AFC South. Now, this is interesting to watch because we got a bunch of teams now that are slowly cooking and creeping in, but it'll be interesting to see how this season really pans out. So I know a lot of people are not going to like me in Jacksonville with as far as the 4th place team, but I just have a feeling, I have a very, very odd feeling with the Jags that I have them going 4th place. And the only reason of this is because that from what we got last year, from the time that they were hot to the time that they then started to really slow things down. That's what I'm afraid of. And I feel like, too, because Trevor Lawrence, he's now sitting on that $55 million a year contract. So that's kind of something to keep in the back of your mind with as far as how does he perform with this. Because I understand it, rookie season, I'm throwing that out. But in the last couple of years, I mean, he's gotten better, but he has not shown the flash that he is, in fact, the quarterback that we saw coming out of Clemson. So, but again, I know they got a lot of really good pieces. Brian Thomas, Gabe Davis, you got Christian Kirk, but
you also got a healthy Trevor Lawrence too. You got You got to
I'm a
remember
little
that he was
curious
injured.
how the defense really pans out for the Jags. But again, if they do not end up panning out in a lot of those situational plays, that's where I feel like could be their downfall. So that's where I kind of keeping an eye out for the Jags. The third place team, which is going to interest a lot of people, which is my best worst team, is the Tennessee Titans in the AFC. So I see them going third, and here's my reasons why. Is that you get an offensive coach in this building, which is interesting to see how Brian Callahan really works with this, but they've solidified their tackles with Peter Skoronski and with J.C. Latham, and they're working up on a bunch of pieces. Now, yes, they do not have Derrick Henry. I understand that, but it is a running back by committee type of play. You get Tony Pollard in the building. He's going to be switching off a bunch of different rushes, but we've got that kid Spears that I know is going to get majority of those rushes. Now, they did end up getting Calvin Ridley. They got L'Jarius Sneed, and they also got Tyler Boyd. But if Will Levis is in fact the real deal, which we have seen some spurts where he can throw the ball deep downfield and could take it down the yards, and not to mention, too, his accuracy. This is why that I'm like, coming from a Zach Taylor tree and Brian Callahan, when Burrow went down and Jake Browning came in at quarterback, there was a lot of those adjustments that worked for the better. I feel like you get an offensive coach with Will Levis, this could change up the possibilities, and I think the Titans, they have played hard to an extent, but I think this could be very interesting to watch. Again, they're my best worst team in this upcoming season, but even being placed third. I don't see them being a playoff team. I think this is going to be kind of cutthroat all throughout this AFC, but they'll be interesting to watch. The Colts in second place, and the only reason of that is because Anthony Richardson, we haven't seen his full potential yet. So what Shane Steichen was able to do last year with a Gardner Minshew, and not to mention, I have been watching some very good film on Adonai Mitchell, and I love with what I've seen. With coming into a wide receiver core with Michael Pittman, with Josh Downs, and with Alec Pierce, this wide receiver core looks very good. And not a lot of people are really kind of given the credit of what Shane Steichen's been able to do. Now, defensively, they add in Laiatu Latu, who I really liked in UCLA. I think they get some power on their pass rush. Zaire Franklin and a couple other pieces. Kwity Paye. My only question is, how will I see the secondary really pan out for the Indianapolis Colts? Now, that's going to be interesting of something to see for the Colts moving forward this year. But I have great confidence that Shane Steichen can make them a playoff team again because he has innovated this offense. I mean, he's been a rock star since an offensive coordinator in the last few places he's been at. But I have a good feeling he's going to carry that over, and we're going to see a much healthier Anthony Richardson this upcoming season. And then finally, the first place team, which kind of seems like everybody's obvious, is the Houston Texans. I think they have a lot to play for. CJ Stroud, what we've seen last year as an offensive rookie of the year, and then all the pieces they picked up, defensively, offensively, the possibilities are so endless for the Houston Texans to make a leap. And so, again, a lot of people, they're very optimistic about the Texans this year, but I have full confidence with knowing we have a player-type coach, very strong, understands the culture. I think the Texans will be fine at this point. So I've got the Jags, the Titans, Colts, and the Texans in the South.
My list is a little bit different again because I am going to go with the Tennessee Titans in fourth place. I agree with you. I think that, with the upgraded offense that they got, getting L'Jarius Sneed, getting Jamal Adams, getting Tyler Boyd and Calvin Ridley was huge. But bringing in a new coach, a new offense that Will Levis is going to have to learn because he was running the Shane Waldron offense last year. Or no, it wasn't Shane Waldron. Shane Waldron was in Seattle. So I don't know who the OC was, but I know that he was running a different offense and everything. And it's going to take some time to get used to that, and it's going to take some time to get used to a new head coach in general. Not everybody can be CJ Stroud and DeMeco Ryans right off the bat, you know. But I do have them winning at least 7 or 8 games, maybe even shocking people and winning 10 games and stuff. I could very well see that happen. Now, the next 3 are very up and down. Very, very up and down. I do see any of these 3 teams winning the division. And I've said before that I think that the AFC South is the upcoming AFC North, because they've got so many teams that are up and coming, so many teams that got their quarterbacks, and so many teams that are battling it out for the top spot of the division. And the division is getting tougher and tougher every year. But third place, I got the Jacksonville Jaguars. I disagree in the aspect of we haven't really seen a whole lot of Trevor Lawrence. The rookie year, I'm going to give it a wash, just like you are. But the second year, we saw them, you know, him go 4,200 yards. We saw him throw for 24, 25 touchdowns. And we also saw, I think, 8 or 9 picks that year. Those are pretty good stats. And then last year, he was injured for most of the season. I know people say that's an excuse and everything, but, like, when you're not healthy, you are not playing at your best. And we know that your best can be a lot better when you are at the peak of your game. Not to mention, I did go back and see all of the touchdowns that were dropped in the end zone, and there was at least 7 or 8 of them that would have went the Jacksonville Jaguars' way, and they could have easily had 2 more wins, and Trevor could have had at least 5 more touchdowns added onto his total this year. But I do got the Jags going in third place. I think that their secondary still needs a little work. Their defense doesn't scare me. I think it's their offense that's going to be a lot better than what people think. And then second place, I got the Indianapolis Colts as well. I think that Shane Steichen, for the 3 or 4 games that he had Anthony Richardson was looking dominant. Obviously, he knows how to utilize a dual-threat quarterback because he worked with Jalen Hurts, and Jalen had an MVP season underneath Shane Steichen as an offense. And then Justin Herbert had his best season with him as an OC. So I think that Shane Steichen is one of the better offensive minds in the NFL. And like you said, going 9-8 with Gardner Minshew, and then them upgrading their defensive side of the ball as well. But not only that, I love the Adonai Mitchell pick. Like, it was 2 spots away from Cleveland, and I was hoping that Cleveland would have been able to pick him, but 2 spots away from that pick, and I was just gutted when that happened. And then my first place team was the Houston Texans, like you said. Upgraded their running back in Joe Mixon, getting Stephon Diggs, not to mention getting Danielle Hunter on the defensive side of the ball with DeMeco Ryans. And I think that CJ Stroud has done a very good job at distributing the ball evenly. It's not just going to focus on Nico Collins or Tank Dell or Stephon Diggs. It's going to be a collective group. And I do think that Texans team and CJ Stroud is going to be a lot better than what people think.
Yeah, no, I agree. This South Division is going to be really interesting to watch throughout the entirety of the season. But let's go over to the AFC West, because there's a lot of this expectation with new coaching staffs, new quarterbacks. Defenses are getting a lot better. So we're going to start with the 4th spot. My takeaway, I have the Raiders finishing 4th. And the only reason of this is I love their defense. Like, Antonio Pierce has hit it off on his side of the ball. Adding in Christian Wilkins finally next to Max Crosby is going to be huge for that pass rush. Now, as far as Epps, Merrick, and Nate Hobbs in the secondary, I mean, this team could do you no wrong up on the defense. But the thing I'm very curious of, they just announced it, Gardner Minshew is the quarterback 1 of the Las Vegas Raiders. But you're going to probably see a different look of Gardner Minshew when he's outside of Shane Steichen. A lot of people have been saying that, and I completely agree. But I think the Raiders, they're going to be pretty hard-nosed throughout the entirety of the season. But it's going to be interesting to watch how this team really performs. So I have them at 4. Number 3, that living here and hearing all of the great buzzes of their new quarterback, Bo Nix, I have the Denver Broncos sitting up at 3rd. The only reason of this is because offensively was never their problem. I mean, Tim Patrick looks healthy. Bo Nix shows like he's got a lot of promise as being the quarterback one of this this franchise, and Sean Payton is really developing that relationship. But I'm curious to see how this defense really pans out, because that was their problem. Because the defense, like, they got gutted. Randy Gregory gone. Multiple players gone. But I love Patrick Surtain. I do like a couple other pieces as well. Audric Estime, who I think could be a very, very good backup running back for a lot of fantasy purposes. But I do feel like the Denver Broncos will be interesting to watch. But I think this starts the build that Sean Payton has been explaining to a lot of people. This is what the culture that we are going to bring. I do not want any excuses. I do not want anybody to second guess a lot of the decisions, because you've got to build your instinct. And I think he's found that with Bo Nix. But like I said, those first 13 weeks are going to be pretty challenging throughout the entirety of the season. But I'm excited to see what the build will be for the Denver Broncos. I have them at third, second place. And to me, I feel like a lot of people, they are just doubting this organization, and that's the LA Chargers and Jim Harbaugh. The one thing that people don't realize, when you have a culture setter as a head coach, your entire vibe of your organization changes. So, and to me, here's the other thing. Justin Herbert is officially out of the boot. So he's been okay after the plantar fascia. So, and I have full confidence that he's been recovering it very well. A 4.0 biology major student who understands the human body and the the cases that it takes for when you deal with injury recoveries. So I know that this team is going to be smart enough to do that. They are going to be very much run heavy for sure. But that play action for the Chargers this upcoming season is going to be so much fun to watch. I got them up at second place, and then finally in the first place, which is very hard to trump over in this division, is Kansas City. I mean, there's you cannot stop the relationship between Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. When you have these two together, like this is what it is. And I know a lot of people like clowning on every quarterback in this division. But it's because you're dealing with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid twice a year. You know how hard that is to have to end up dealing with it every single year. So realistically, like the Chiefs have a great defense. Yes, losing L'Jarius Sneed is hard, but they got Trent McDuffie. They have a couple other positions too that I felt like they filled in, especially with that Xavier Worthy pick. So it's going to be hard to really trump over the Chiefs. So I have the Raiders, the Broncos, the Chargers, and then I have the Chiefs in the AFC West.
Yeah, I pretty much got mine the exact same way. I'm just not really high on the Raiders defense like a lot of other people are. I mean, I like the Christian Wilkins pickup. I love, Max Crosby, the way it is, and Marcus Epps and Nate Hobbs, like, secondary. But, like, the linebacker core is, like, mediocre. The offense, you got Brock Bowers, you got Michael Mayer, you got Devontae Adams, but it's all a matter of what Gardner Minshew can do. And Luke Getsy, we saw how terrible he was with the Bears and everything, and bringing him in as the OC was a terrible choice. So I do think that the Raiders were actually one of 4 teams I predicted to have the number 1 overall pick, because I feel like they are a good team. They are just a good OC and a good quarterback away from being a lot more successful.
That's fair.
And then number 3, I got the Broncos as well. I love, I actually have a lot of, good things to say about Bo Nix. I know that Tim cannot stand Bo Nix. He cannot stand when we talk about him on his live and everything. But from what I've seen in preseason with the starters, he doesn't just throw to one guy. Like, he threw to Tim Patrick, he threw to Dulcich, he threw to Mims and everything. Like, he's getting these guys open. He's basically, the yes man that Sean Payton's wanted. And I don't know if you heard the story or not about Sean Payton and Bo Nix and what he did in that draft room and what made Sean be like, this is the guy I want. I don't want anybody else. But it was a neat story. to hear. And, Bo Nix out there acts like he's a veteran. He does not act like he is shying away from contact or, making rookie mistakes or anything. So it's really nice to see. And I'm with you. I got the Chargers in second place in this division. I do believe that Jim Harbaugh coming in, straightening up this team, making them play better, upgrading their offensive line a little bit. I am not too high on the offensive situation. I do think that it's going to be tough this year with not having good offensive weapons in terms of wide receivers, running backs, or whatnot. But I do believe that the minor upgrades with Ladd McConkey coming in, Junior Colson coming in and leading your defense in the linebacker spot and everything, having Derwin James healthy and Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, I do think your defense is going to be the bright spot of your team. However, I do see the Chargers being a sneaky wildcard team just because of how well coached they will be. But a number one team, like you said, it's very, very hard to go against them when they got the best quarterback in the league, arguably the best coach in the league at this point in time. And until somebody dethrones them from the top of the division, until somebody dethrones them from, Super Bowl contention, they're always going to be the number one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, like I said, this is definitely going to be an interesting division to watch because, Herbert and Jim Harbaugh, that connection, that's going to be something fun and worth watching. And then at the same time, I've got a slow cook build with Bo Nix and Sean Payton. So this West division usually always seems to get something really, really good. But it'll be interesting to see throughout the entirety of the year.
I'm also going to love to hear Tim eat his words on Bo Nix when he ends up balling out. It is going to be so hilarious because he already hated making a video about how wrong he was about CJ Stroud. But just imagine how bad he's going to hate himself when he has to make a video about Bo Nix, be like, wow, I was wrong.
God, back-to-back whammies. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. All right, well, finally, last but not least, I saved the best for last. Your division in the AFC North. So here's what I've got from here because this is hard. But the fourth place team, I have a feeling, is the Pittsburgh Steelers. From what I've seen this year, Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, this is going to be difficult. And at the same time, it's a slow-cooking offensive line. Tomlin being a defensive culture guy, not getting the offensive line right now for the last few years has been so difficult. And, again, I understand, firing Matt Canada. It was one thing that needed to happen. That was done. But now you've got Arthur Smith. And again, however Arthur Smith's offense is going to produce is what's going to be the result and the outcome for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I have a feeling this streak is going to snap this year because of just what I've seen from the offensive play. So much noise around in Pittsburgh with as far as, Justin Fields. Oh, he can play. Oh, he's shown a lot of flashes. But then I just watched the same old Justin Fields again after just watching that game against the Texans, and that was my wrap. So I've got them at 4th. This is interesting because I do feel like the three teams may end up fighting for this position for a few reasons. Now, I feel like the Cincinnati Bengals may end up finishing 3rd, but they'll have a winning record amongst them. And here's my defense of this. Joe Burrow is finally healthy. They did end up getting Geno Stone. They did end up fixing up a couple areas, but those corners is what's going to be my area of concern. Now, they do like this Chase Brown kid as the running back, so I'm curious to see how that really works out. But they have a new offensive coordinator, one that Joe Burrow trusts from what I'm told. But, again, this is one of those seasons that they've got to put it together. The offensive line needs to end up protecting Burrow a lot more, and we've known that every single year with Cincinnati. But I do feel like the corners is going to be something worth watching to kind of get an idea of how the team will perform. So interesting to see this, but I think Cincinnati with a winning record and finishing 3rd, I don't think it's crazy in my opinion. This is what's interesting because I have a feeling that this second place team, I don't know how you feel about this, but I have the Cleveland Browns in 2nd. but they do tie up for the first place spot. And the only reason of this is because I love their defense. I felt like, Greg Newsome and several other really good players on that secondary, even with Denzel Ward, they have been very, very good. And Myles Garrett is unbelievable. The guy's a freakish athlete. But we also know that they've acquired Jerry Jeudy. They still have Elijah Moore, and they've got Amari Cooper. So they have offensive weapons along with David Njoku. But is this the year that Deshaun Watson, after all the distractions, after everything that we've seen all throughout the previous years, this is where I think this becomes an important year for Deshaun Watson to really rewrite the script. So I just have a feeling that I think the Cleveland Browns are going to be playing the hardest. That first place spot is going to be worth fighting for in this division. But again, I think this division's a complete bloodbath. But I have Cleveland finishing up at second. And then my first place team, which I know is not going to have the same result as it was last year, is the Baltimore Ravens. It is very, very difficult to beat a guy who wins literally 80% of his games every year. And it doesn't matter how he ends up doing it. Yeah, they lost Patrick Queen. Yeah, they lost Geno Stone. They lost Mike McDonald. But Baltimore has such a strong culture that they just show up on any given Sunday. It's just weird to me. But at the same time, it's the kind of strong culture every football fan would love to have on their organization. So, I think Baltimore, to a sense, with Lamar Jackson and with how this offensive line, he's very elusive. He is a guy that I think will make any and everything work around him. And now having Derrick Henry, that is going to be interesting to watch. But like I said, winning 80% of your games, that's difficult to have to really kind of thump over. But I have the Steelers, the Bengals, the Browns, and the Baltimore Ravens. But again, those three teams are going to end up with winning record. And those may be the teams that fight for those wild card spots that we also have coming up.
Yeah, no, this is a division where I feel like all four teams are going to have a winning record again this year. And it's very, very tough, very difficult to predict. And as much as I hate to say it, I got the Steelers being in fourth, but I hate to say this. I do see them succeeding and having a winning record again, like a 9-8 record, just because we have seen time and time again, especially last year, where the offense was so bad and they just managed to squeak out wins because the defense kept them in the games. And they were able to get takeaways or fumbles or, fumble returns for touchdowns, whatever it may be, to help keep them in that moment to where they were going to win the game or that big play whenever they needed it. And that is the Mike Tomlin-led Steelers team that you are, thinking about and whatnot. And if they don't target players and make them leave for the rest of the year like Minkah Fitzpatrick did, then I feel like, it's going to be difficult to deny them that. And it pains me to say that as a Browns fan, but I do think that you won't see that losing record, but you will definitely see them in fourth place in the division. Now, third place, I am completely different from you. I've got the Baltimore Ravens finishing in third place. And here's the reason why. People underestimate how detrimental coaching is. And the fact that the Ravens have lost 7 defensive players and 4 defensive coaches. They lost their D-line coach, their DB's coach, their linebacker coach, and their defensive coordinator. And I've talked to some Ravens fans, and they said that, the DC that took over has been with the organization for 3 years. He knows the guys and everything, but he's never called plays. You can be with the organization all you want and everything, but just because you've been there and you haven't called plays doesn't mean you're going to be, or just because you've been there for so long doesn't mean you're going to have the success. You've got to be able to call the plays. You got to be able to get the defensive schemes up and going. Yeah, Kyle Hamilton is one of the better safeties in the league. You've got Nate Wiggins, who's been tearing it up in preseason, but he's a rookie, so we're going to have to wait and see. But I've got second place going to the Cincinnati Bengals. I think that with Joe Burrow fully healthy, you've got a Bengals team that went toe-to-toe with the Kansas City Chiefs and won. Went to back-to-back AFC championships and lost one championship because of a penalty play by one of their defensive linemen, pushing Patrick Mahomes when he's already out of bounds and causing them to get 15 yards to kick a field goal. So I do think that everybody's underestimating this Bengals team and, you know, how good they actually are and whatnot. And then in first place, for the first time since 1989, I've got the Cleveland Browns winning this division, because you're talking about a team that went 11-6 last year with 33% of their roster injured, which was more than anybody in the league. And Deshaun Watson went into Baltimore, was down 14 points, and put up the best performance that he's ever put up in a Cleveland Browns uniform in the entire second half of that game. And he did that with the depleted roster. And can you just imagine what's going to happen when you have Nick Chubb back in that offense? You have, you know, Jerry Jeudy now, and you've got a much upgraded offense and offensive system than what you have in the past. You also got Deuce Staley, a new running backs coach. You got Tommy Rees, a new tight ends coach. You got a new offensive line coach coming in there, and a new OC who has, when he was the quarterbacks coach for the Panthers, Cam Newton won an MVP. He was also the quarterbacks coach for Josh Allen, and Josh had one of the better seasons that he's had in his career in terms of stat-wise when he was the QB coach. And now he's the QB coach / OC for the Cleveland Browns and Deshaun Watson. I look for Deshaun to be back to his Houston form that he had, and I do see the Browns, you know, going 11-6 or 12-5 and winning this division for the first time in years.
All right. Well, that is going to be interesting to watch from here. So, all right. So this is our playoff picture prediction that we have. So my division winners from all four. I've had the Bills, the Chiefs, the Texans, and then the Ravens. And so my three wild card teams are the Browns. I have a feeling this year we are going to see the Colts as a wild card team. And then I've got the Chargers. So those are my three wild card teams from there. Yes, I do have a feeling that because of how close that the season was, and usually we do get brand new teams in the playoffs every single year, because now the Dolphins are not going to be up in it. The Jets end up losing themselves up out of it. And then at the same time, I just feel like with the stretch, it may be difficult for Cincinnati. It may be very difficult. But this is why I've always said my hot take is that there are going to be 4 AFC teams this year that are going to go 10-7, and they are fighting for those wild card spots. That's where I'm going with it. So those are my playoff predictions from there.
My playoff predictions are going to be entirely different. I do have the Chiefs at the 1 seed, the Bills at the 2 seed, the Texans at the 3 seed, and the Browns at the 4 seed for my division winners. I do believe that that's how the division winners are going to be. Now, the wild cards, I do have different. And sorry, Jake, I've got the Chargers out of the wild card race. This year, they just miss out. They could stick in there. I could very well see it. I'm not discouraging them, but I think that these other teams, you know, their rosters are just that much better that I feel like they're gonna sneak in. And I've got, for the top wild card spot, I've got the Bengals going in there. Like you said, we always see new teams in the playoffs every year. There's at least 4 teams that don't make it that made it the previous year. So I do have the Bengals, I do have the Jets, and I do have the Colts as my 3 wild card nominees and everything. And in that order, it's going to be Bengals, the Jets, and the Colts for the 5, 6, and 7 seed.
Wow. All right.
So
that's going to be interesting there. Wow. So you've got very good hopes.
Yeah.
No,
I do, because like I feel like I'm the only one that has actually sat down and watched this team thoroughly from last year and how their defense played. And I counted 6 games where it was a one-score game or less.
Yeah.
And had you had Aaron Rodgers, it would have been a different story. And not to mention the fact that you have an upgraded offense with offensive line, 2 new wide receivers, and then a 4-time MVP, Super Bowl MVP quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. I do think that the Jets are going to be a lot better than what people expect them to be. And it kind of is, to say the least, that people are not really thinking highly of the Jets, and they're going to prove a lot of wrong this year.
Yeah, I mean, it is an interesting thought, and again, my only takeaway with the Jets is that, like, how am I going to see Nate Hackett as the offensive coordinator? Is this going to be something that I think, Aaron would have to literally babysit, Nate Hackett, because in the end, if he does not end up moving the needle on this, that could be a serious problem for the Jets. And that's why, I'm just skeptical of it, because with all the news surrounding the Jets and all the rest of it is why I have just an utmost concern about it. But again, I just feel like with Nate Hackett, that's going to be interesting for me, because is this going to be a point where, Aaron would have to literally babysit him and just work on that offense up on his own? That's the part I'm a little bit, skeptical of. But, again, Hassan Reddick, news up on that. I mean, that's what's going to be hard. I trust teams that I know quiet the noise and they're ready for football. Like, those are the teams that I know that I trust. And unfortunately with the Jets, it's just very hard. It's just really, really hard with it.
I get that. I really do, and I see where you're coming from and everything, but I think that Aaron Rodgers trusts Nate Hackett a lot, and he came to his defense when he was in Denver and everything, and all the people that were talking about him. And I don't think that Aaron would be more comfortable with a different offense than what Nate is running, because I think that Nate has tailored the offense to what Aaron does best and what he did well in Green Bay and everything, and like what makes him tick, and the nooks and crannies that he's been able to do. And I do think that this Jets offense is going to shock a lot of people and everything. I am just high on them. I know what their defense is capable of. I know that if they were able to score at least one more touchdown in every game that they had, they would have won at least 4 more games than what they did. So it's gonna be interesting. That's just my take on it. I do think that the Jets will make it as a wild card team, and they're gonna shock a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, and don't get me wrong, I think this is a team that's capable of winning up to 9-10 games as long as everything flows right, and that's what I'm saying. The AFC is just going to have multiple people, multiple teams that we know
10 wins.
Yeah,
don't make
10
it.
wins. Yeah, and they don't make it. I mean, this was similarly when we had 3 9-7 teams, and the Bills ended up cutting it out against the Chargers and one other team. I could see that being more than what we saw in that year. So yeah, there's is going to be quite the outlook, and I think this year, with what I've seen with roster builds and with how the entirety of the preseason and the training camps have looked like, I mean, this is going to be an interesting season. But I think the AFC, we just had to get that out the way because, yeah, it's very stacked. So, and it's hard to really, predict a lot of it. The NFC is a little different, but that's where I think Wednesday we might be able to come down to that. And so, again, I think this has always been my prediction upon it. I had somewhat of a couple hits last year, but I think this year I'm fully confident up and in this, on the division leaders and the wild card spots. So anything can happen. I mean, honestly, anything can happen at the end of the day. So,
yep.
All right. Well, what a show that we've had here tonight, and appreciate everybody that jumped up onto the show. Shout out to Mark Davison with Steelers Nation all the way up from Australia. Appreciate him for taking the time to be with us. And then, of course, the Arizona sports fan Mike joining us, getting involved with the Cardinals. We are going like all NFL, like throughout the next couple weeks, because once week 1 starts up, we got everything that we ingested. We've got everything that we've seen. And so now that's when week 1 is where it matters most. And you also know what that means. That means Prime Predictions come back. I have a new inaugural betting line as well that you'll see up on social media as Jake's Inferno 5. So I'm excited for my 5 favorite picks of every single week. And then we'll
take a break in the NFL action when October comes for the MLB playoffs and the playoff predictions. So.
That's right. Yep. We also remember about postseason baseball in October. So we're not missing out up on that. Appreciate everybody for hanging out and joining with us. This has been Jake Silva and Chase Steffes. Show brought to you by BetUS, where the NFL season begins. Check out BetUS. And, of course, we have the special contests going around now. $50 or more into your deposit when you sign up. You'll get matched 125% with up to $2K in earnings in your first 3 of those deposits. And also 30 risk-free bets when you sign up and join BetUS, where the game begins, and also on SeatGeek for your next event. And the best seat in the house at the most affordable price, $20 off by using Snake Sports as the promo code. With Jake and Chase signing off here, have a great night, guys, and we shall see you in the next episode of the Snake Sports Talk Show. Take care, everyone.
Take care.